Welcome back to Cheney's War Room, the political equivalent of getting kicked in the shins, being broadcast from your guest bedroom.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
I hope you're all doing well. This past week has been very wild. Trump recommended that we drink bleach to cure coronavirus, which I've been recommending for years, but all I got out of it was cake from the Counter-Strike match. Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. We got a lot of big topics happening that we're doing deep dives on this week, and so I figure we get right into it. Right, Porter?
Yeah, that sounds good. The first one that I want to cover is the one we talked about kind of last week. You'll remember, we're talking about those idiots that were out protesting quarantine. Like the Michigan and the Minnesota protests about people going out in their lifted trucks, flying their Confederate flags, wanting to go out to the barbershop and blocking hospitals and stuff. So it turns out that those legitimate campaigns by concerned citizens were instead extensive astroturfing campaigns with ties to David fucking Koch. Astroturfing, for those uninitiated with the scummy backroom corporate workings, is when a powerful organization wants something changed, but knows it doesn't look good if the organization outright says it. So they fund a fake grassroots campaign to make it seem like the normal American cares about that issue as well and is on the side of that big corporation or organization. And it turns out all of these anti-quarantine protests were, to a large degree, astroturfed. So how we can tell this is a lot by their online presence, by both their Facebook and also their websites themselves. To begin, for the websites themselves, all of the websites are similar, nigh identical. So I'm talking about all of these websites that sprung up almost simultaneously calling for the end of quarantine in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, along with many others. They are nigh identical. I'm not saying they say the same type of rhetoric. I'm saying they say the same type of rhetoric in the same wording. So they all have the same header. They all have the same info. The only thing that's different is it's palette swapped to each state's colors and has, instead of Wisconsin, it says Iowa and whatnot. But it's disgustingly obvious that all of these websites were made by the same corporation and not made by independent citizens concerned about quarantine. Also, the Facebook groups. The Facebook groups were not only created around the same time, like Operation Gridlock Los Angeles, Operation Gridlock Tennessee, Operation Gridlock Pennsylvania, and Operation Gridlock Minnesota. There are more, but these are the ones that I could easily find, a lot of which have been changed and deleted, so I have to use the Wayback Machine to find all of them. But these are also identical. So they all look the same, and they also all have the same description about coronavirus. So what do we know about the actual backroom dealings of all of this stuff, and what corporation is astroturfing this? So, quoting from a Washington Post article, a lot of these websites themselves are funded almost exclusively by libertarian or conservative think tanks. So the main one is called Convention of States. It's a finance conservative campaign to undermine restrictions that medical experts say are necessary to contain the coronavirus, that all of these quarantine methods are overkill, and whose economic fallout could damage Trump. The Convention of States has large Republican donors and is a massive Republican think tank. So they launched in 2015 with high dollar donations from Robert Mercer, a hedge fund manager with a Republican platform. And it also boasts support from two other members of the Trump administration, the director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and Ben Carson, for some reason. Also, the president of the Convention of States' parent organization, Eric O'Keefe, who responded to all of this allegations about, hey, all of these protesting campaigns were faked by you. He responded to that by saying that they're just trying to give a platform for the people who plan to communicate. Eric O'Keefe also has direct ties to David Koch, the fossil fuels executive. He even helped manage David Koch's 1980 bid for the White House, where he served as number 2 on the Libertarian ticket. The concluding question in all of this is, to what extent is the anti-quarantine movement fake? My response to that is that it is not a legitimate movement of concerned citizens, but of wealthy corporations. Sure, there are legitimate people protesting that believe in the cause, and I'm sure legitimate groups have spawned out of this, but all of them were spurred on Facebook by groups and websites not with the same intentions those protesters had. So, What is the point of all of this? What is the point of all these protests, and why would they go and astroturf all of these campaigns? Well, it is in the best interest of these corporations and companies, and these with powerful executives, that the US economy and its workers start working again. And to a certain degree, the protesters agree with that. But it's not for them, it's for you. They want you to go back to work and put your life in danger so their lives can return to normal. I'm talking about the protesters here. They don't care about your life or your livelihood. They care about being able to go golfing again and go to the Cracker Barrel. So that's the scoop on astroturfing. And all of these campaigns are fake. Nathan, what do you have to say? What's your first deep dive on this week?
Well, Porter, everyone's been asking me this week, what's up with Kim Jong Un? And I'm here to say, I really have no clue. Kim Jong Un was last seen publicly on April 11th. Since then, he missed visiting his grandfather's gravesite on April 15th for his grandfather's birthday, which he does every year. Granted, his younger sister also missed that same date. With the lack of public appearances, people have made a lot of conclusions and rumors have been spread about his condition. People have said that Kim Jong Un had a heart attack, is brain dead, or is even deceased. And these rumors have spread as far as American tabloids like TMZ and New York Post and even Fox News. What exactly is going on depends on who you listen to. South Korea has said that their intelligence has seen no evidence of Kim ailing. And in fact that he's staying at a villa in Gangwon province and has been visiting and moving about. This theory is supported by overhead pictures of one of his trains arriving at his complex on the 23rd. However, Reuters has cited 3 sources in saying that China sent a medical team to North Korea to monitor Kim Jong Un. And one of the premier South Korean newspapers, who has been publishing mostly parroting what the Korean government has been saying, also accidentally published a pre-written death article. Now, a lot of newspapers do this. They'll write articles about celebrity deaths in anticipation so that they can act fast when they do actually die. However, this specific article directly mentioned the coronavirus crisis. Even since doing my initial research, new pieces of information are coming out. A South Korean newspaper is citing sources who say they've seen Kim Jong Un at a vacation spot in that same area that South Korean intelligence is pointing him at. However, everyone says that their sources are reliable, so it's really hard to figure out what is substantiated. In the meantime, I think everyone should stay as up-to-date as possible as they can on this story. I'm sure by the time this podcast is published, some stuff will be out of date. Regardless, this situation does bring up an interesting point, which is what would happen to North Korea if Kim Jong Un died right now? Well, there's 2 possible successors. Kim Jong Un's children are too young at this point to take the helm. So one is Kim Jong Chol, who is actually Kim Jong Un's older brother, but was passed over for the position of supreme leader because he just fucking loves Eric Clapton and music, and he just seems like too cool of a dude to leave a authoritarian government. And the other possibility, which is more likely, is Kim Yo-jung, the youngest child of Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's sister. She leads the propaganda department of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea, and she's been branded as North Korea's Ivanka Trump. Now, I just think it would be a little bit ironic if North Korea had a woman leader before the United States of America. Not to say that a woman leading a authoritarian nation like North Korea would be any great win for feminism, but I think it's still an interesting fact.
Nathan, just to ask you a question on this and all of this, do you think it really matters if, in terms of the global community and international relations, if Kim Jong Un is dead? Will much change depending on how we think of North Korea and how North Korea interacts with others? If there's if it's not Kim Jong Un at the helm, does that matter at all, really?
Obviously, I'm no expert. It was evident, though, that when Kim Jong Un took over, a lot of policies actually changed in North Korea. He started embracing science. He lessened punishments for attempted defectors. There was a more progressive movement, if that kind of seems weird to say about Kim Jong Un when he took office. So it could be that a new leader may have vastly different policies. It's also true that North Korea, for a long period of time, has been sort of losing their hold on their citizens as technology has made it increasingly easy for South Korea to get information across to North Korean citizens. So the propaganda has lost power. So seeing this addition of death of the supreme leader could lead to a lot of instability, and who knows what will happen. I think it depends on who ends up taking power and what exactly they do with it. North Korea is very secretive about how their government is run, but I think there will be some noticeable change. It is not like the replacement of one president to another by any means, or one, Democrat to another, one party member to another. I think it is likely that we will see big events in North Korea.
I'm just hoping it's that one dude you mentioned who like really likes guitars and stuff. Kim Jong Kool. He seems sick. That dude seems nice. I would have him as my dictator. He seems like the kind of guy that would be super chill and just like give every North Korean family like a copy of like Guitar Hero or something. It'd be kind of like if like how like Nick Cage's son is like really into Kiss and just so out of the public eye. It's like if he became president. I think that would be cool. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm excited for the new like Woodstock, North Korea, in 2025 or whatever.
There isn't enough like regimes based around Guitar Hero and stuff. Like, why is there no DDR-based regime? I think that's something a lot of world leaders miss out on.
Where is, like, I don't know, Tony Hawk Pro Skater authoritarian governments,
I think that's slightly to the left of like right libertarianism. But I don't know where that falls on a political compass.
Political compass of PS2 games.
Shadow of the Colossus is definitely authoritative left. My next topic, or the thing I want to talk about, is sinophobia. It really isn't, this ain't a happy topic. I spend a lot of time online, as people probably know, and I'm forced to because of quarantine. And I see a lot of angry coronavirus responses aimed at China. We have the more blatant, outright racism of Chinese people are stupid and their primitive wet markets cause this virus, which that rhetoric is a lot easier to combat since it's just unfounded and just racist. Chinese people are not any different than humans anywhere else, and wet markets are just a palette swap of American farmers markets. Which, as a side tangent here, the same folks who blame the wet markets for having like exotic and weird meats are the same people who go to like Carl's Jr. and get the new burger with chemical-infused processed meat saturated with grease and served with fake cheese. And those people have never been to rural America. Rural America is obsessed with doing weird shit with meat. I know a place along the highway to Oregon's coast that is an old gas station that advertises selling like 70 different kinds of beef jerky. I want to speak instead on the more subtle sinophobia of all this. This was spurred for me by a recent Biden ad I saw, which was a attack ad on Trump for being too weak on China. And it showed clips of how Trump had praised China's response to COVID, and the video itself, as I felt, made no attempt to distinguish between the Chinese people and the Chinese government, which this is the line of argumentation I want to hit on. The coronavirus response of, I don't hate Chinese people, but I just hate the Chinese government. First, who do you think the Chinese government is staffed by? I'll give you a hint, it's not Polish people. And look, I acknowledge the CCP is an authoritative party, and I'm sure they have underreported their coronavirus numbers. But who hasn't? Every nation understands that it is in their best interest to report less coronavirus cases to try and show that their economy and their government are not failing. And this obsession with China's case numbers is incredibly disingenuous when it comes to America. New York has more cases and deaths than most other countries, and we know for a fact that America is fudging the case numbers as well. The New York Times reported weeks ago that doctors who don't have tests are reporting deaths as influenza or pneumonia. And I'm sorry, China has done a better job than the US in containing the virus. Wuhan is no longer under quarantine. That's where this virus started. And don't think this is my endorsement of authoritarianism. It is just the simple fact that authoritative governments can quickly respond to national issues. There's no gridlock like the US Congress trying to decide the minimum amount of money to give to poor people. That's why China was able to build a hospital in 6 days. So, in final, if you're trying to criticize China for faking numbers and you don't acknowledge America's response, congrats! You are a borderline xenophobe who finds it easier to blame foreign nations for their success in an attempt to ignore the failures happening in your own country.
And that's episode 5 of Cheney's War Room. I'm Nathan Wilk. You can find my podcast, Faces with Nathan Wilk, on YouTube or SoundCloud.
I'm Porter Wheeler. You can find me on Twitter at Doc Baddington, or just Porter Wheeler, and you can find me on Insta, also at Porter Wheeler. And you can find my Counter-Strike Frag Montages gaming channel by doing the Konami code on the Library of Congress's website. And then, thanks for listening. And then next week, we are going to be talking about how professors keep making the due dates for all of our assignments be in the middle of the day and not at 11:15 or like at 11:59 like normal humans, which is done. Nathan, do your professors do this? Of which, like, we're all in online school, right? Which is already in its own horrible, and there's no structure to anything. But do your professors like try to emulate the idea of having structured class time by putting like the due dates to like 5 p.m. or something?
Yeah, bro. What do you think I'm doing at 5 p.m., you know?
It's so because okay, look, like I get
I'm like getting jacked, you know, like I'm working out. You know?
I'm making my CS:GO frag montages. No, it's so dumb because like if you want to emulate the structure of a class, sure, that's like a cool thing to do, but like when we're all at home and not like on campus, that doesn't work because at least I'm privileged enough to be in the same fucking time zone of my school. But what about those people who are not? And like, I guarantee you, the professor who made me have like a 9 a.m. due date to simulate like the end of my 8 a.m. class for one of my assignments is not up at that time. They're not looking at their email. They're not doing stuff there.
He's making CSGO frag montages. He's getting jacked. He's working out.
I think because it's the word I would rather to have a due date at 9 a.m. than have a due date at 5 p.m. because it's such an arbitrary just in the middle of the day thing. It's so I don't know. Just round up. Just round it up. If it's before noon, make it due 11:59 the previous day. If it's supposed to be due afternoon, make it due 11:59 that day. That's it. That's solution. I solved it. I don't know. Professors like to fetishize a structure.
You're just going. We're gonna have to fade this out, bro.
Fine. Fade me out. I don't care. Canvas should be abolished. If you use Canvas, it should be abolished. And that stupid other thing they use, like record thing, like prompt 2 or whatever, to like record their a stupid